Hey boys and girls, welcome to another video. I am bringing you into the inner sanctums of the auto fetish empire. How's that for over dramatization? This is my home office, and behind the camera today, once again, I have Sean with Blue Tech Mobile Detailing. Sean, care to say hello? Because he is on the audio system as well.
Hello, YouTube.
That was succinct, direct, very good. So welcome to my world. Excuse my messy desk, but this is what most of my mornings look like now, is a somewhat disheveled mess on my desk. I've got endless notes, and I'm working on I'll actually click to it because I've got both Chrome and Firefox open. I do all my website building in Firefox. As far as the browser goes, and the platform I use is what's called Site Build It. Anyhow, but Sean came over this morning to shoot some videos. And Sean, do you want to kind of maybe set up the context a little bit as to what we want to talk about?
Yeah, so one of the big subjects right now is wireless wash, wireless no rinse. Is one of the big debates that's happening right now on YouTube.
Yeah.
So I brought up to Darren talking about a specific video he just released where a person by the name of James O'Brien.
Let's just verify that because I've got both. Okay, yes, James O'Brien. He's got a little moniker that shows kind of like a side profile. Looks like he's got a beard and maybe a beanie on, or a baseball cap turned around backwards like myself right in the moment. So James O'Brien made a comment, and this is on one of my latest videos, which I entitled Homemade Waterless Wash. Is this even possible? And what I did you want to say more, Sean? Because I kind of cut you off there. My apologies.
No, it's okay. All I wanted to say was James, in present tense and past tense, he's been very vocal.
Okay, vocal, that would be figuratively speaking, because we are reading his text, as in his comments on the my YouTube channel.
Right, so for all you people out there, this is a metaphor, this is not literally, because I've had a lot of people in the past, I say something and they actually take it for face value.
Literal, like I just did.
Right.
Actually, what I wanted to do is just clarify, because that's how my mind works.
No, it's fine. I'm glad that you said that, because a lot of people would have been debating on that. So.
Yeah.
But go on. That's it. That's all I just want to say about that. Yeah.
So, and let me switch back and forth. And I don't know if you want to zoom in on this, Sean, but for example, here's my website, and I actually have a page. That doesn't stop the camera when you flip that LCD screen around, correct?
No.
So here we are, we have a page called Waterless Auto Detailing. Now the reason I decided to label, because literally that's what the URL will say, will be best auto detailing tips / waterless auto detailing. So that is the title of the page, that is the URL of the page. And you can do a search, by the way. This actually is ranked very well on Google. So if you just entered waterless wash or waterless auto detailing, it will come up on either page 1, 2, or 3, which is not bad results. So I'm working on this page, and as I'm looking at it, it reminds me of just how this industry, and I'll start out here, is not only is the industry constantly looking for ways to separate you. Yeah, you can pan out now, Sean. Not only is the industry looking endlessly for ways to separate you from your money. And I know that sounds very cynical to some of you, but the reality is when you go into business, the goal is to make money. So there's a fiduciary responsibility as a business owner, especially if you're a publicly traded company, to be what's called beholding to your shareholders, which means you have a fiduciary responsibility to make money, to turn a profit. So you're going to find endless ways in which to do that. One of the ways that this industry specifically does that is it comes up with new products. Relabeled, renamed, reconfigured, reformulated, product after product after product. That's one of the issues I take with the industry, is that do we really need this many products? My simple answer is no. But with that said, it does not necessarily diminish all the products available. So this specific area of waterless washing, that is a generalization. Now what I found that James, and I just want to make sure I'm getting names correct. It seems though James, and I'm going to talk directly to you. And by the way, I have no idea if this is your real name, James O'Brien. That could be a made-up name. Who knows? When it comes to social media and the internet, anything goes. You think you know, but you just don't know until you actually know. So let's just pretend that James, that's your real name. It seems like my simple answer is that I agree with you 95%. What I would like to address and start out at the beginning is this, is that the topic of waterless washing, no rinse washing, rinseless washing, quick detailers, spray waxes, spray detailers, it's become a subject that's become so, it's expanded so much and it encompasses so many different types of products that it's really hard unless you apply some very specific clarity to the subject, that you could have 3 guys in a room talking about the same subject, but yet they'll use terms that they are not even in alignment with. So Sean back there could be talking about a no rinse product. And by the way, because there's no standardization in this industry, what does a no rinse product even, what are the requirements of a product being called a no rinse? What are the requirements in order for it to be labeled as a no rinse? Meaning there's no governing body that says, okay, like the health industry or the food industry, in order for you to put organic on your label, it's got to meet certain criteria that the federal government has oversight on that says, hey, unless it meets these certain standards or this criteria, you cannot put that on the label. This industry virtually has none of that. The only kind of standardization has to do with safety, kind of what's called safety data sheets. What's the MDS? The manufacturer's data sheets. So that's kind of regulated at a federal level and a state level. But when it comes to terminology in this industry, so Sean could be talking about a no rinse product, like for example, Optimum No Rinse. I could be talking about a waterless product, and we could think that we're talking about the same process, which is different than the product itself. So I could have a no rinse product, but then we could suddenly be talking about the process in which we use that. And so it's a topic that gets blurred very easily. And so James, it seems like he wants to kind of draw a line in the sand and make it a very black and white subject matter, which is fine as long as there's enough clarity amongst all the people that are participating, which basically is an impossible proposition when it comes to YouTube, because you can make a comment and then it just sits there in internet world in isolation. People can come in and respond, and it's very hard to engage with someone in that moment and clarify what they mean when they use a certain term and so forth. So what I thought, as per Sean's suggestion, is that we dissect this, because I think that there's some useful information here that I can give to you guys in talking about the subject that becomes so blurred. And what my mind also goes to is in dealing with customers when they start talking about, or I should say, they start asking questions. So let's rewind the clock before rinseless, waterless even existed. And let's just talk about, for example, waxes versus sealants, because that's a debate or a conversation that comes up frequently with customers. Oh, I just need to get a couple of good coats of wax on my car. And I say, okay, so you want a couple of good coats of wax. That would suggest that you don't want a couple of bad coats of wax, which that's just me being sarcastic. It's just funny when you've been in business long enough, some of the stuff that you hear come out of your customers' mouths, you're like, okay, do you hear what's coming out of your mouth? Like, do you really need to clarify good coats of wax? I mean, that would suggest that I'm going to maybe cut corners and put bad wax on your car, or do you mean put a good wax on your car in a bad type of manner? See, you've got a product, which is a noun, and then you've got a process, which is a verb. See how I complicate things for you? Which is why so many of you love me, right? Once again, being sarcastic. I know a lot of you just can't endure that. It's just too much information, which is fine. That's why I say I'm not for everyone. So let's fast forward now to present day, and we've got the subject of rinseless, no rinse, waterless. So you've got specific products that are labeled such. Now there's no governing body that says, okay, Mr. Manufacturing Company, you cannot label your product as a rinseless product unless it meets this criteria. That does not exist. So I could come up, which, wait for it, Sean and I did. We took a product by CSI, their spray wax, and because I knew enough of the chemistry that it's true waterborne technology, I knew that I could dilute it down with water and create what we called a waterless wash product. Now, it's not labeled as a dedicated waterless wash product, but does that mean it cannot be used as a waterless product? That's where I would say, yes, it can. Just kind of like James said, is that just because you add wax to water, all you're making is a diluted spray wax. It's not a waterless wash product. And he even states what is something that I would state, which is I could use water as a waterless product, which is a direct contradiction because waterless, does waterless mean no water? Or does waterless mean less water? Like, let's define just that term. How about that for complexity and adding a voice of reason and logic to the equation? Let's define that term. What does waterless mean? Is it waterless as in no water at all? Because virtually every product, if it's a liquid form, has some type of water in it. I don't care what it is. A compound, a polish, a spray detailer, a spray wax, I don't care what it is, it's got water in it. So, in that aspect, if we want to really just play word games, which I could do all day long, every product could be called a waterless product, and yet it couldn't because it's got water in it. Therefore, to come full circle, we would need to clarify and define what we mean by a waterless product. What do we mean by a no rinse product? We need to clarify what we mean by that term in order to dissect that term, the processes of which you use or the techniques that you use that product, and then work our way down that rabbit hole. So let me just read James, and I know this gets pretty boring because I wish I could like speed read and you could just like through osmosis know what he says. My personal opinion is that waterless washing is the worst method to clean your vehicle. Fine. It does scratch or clear coat. Fine. No argument. Plain and simple, cut and dry, period. Fine. No argument. Nobody will argue against this. Well, I'm pretty certain you could find someone that would argue that, James. I'm not going to be the one to argue it because mostly I agree with you. And right there, I could create a whole video just on those first 3 sentences. Waterless washing is the worst method to clean your vehicle. Well, I said fine, but I actually disagree. I don't think it's the worst method because I promise you I could come up with worser methods, if that's even proper English. A more worse method. It does scratch or clear coat. Yes, it does. But what I would add to that is that anything, you touch anything with your car has the potential to scratch your car, but the real essence of that is how much is it scratching your car. And once again, let's define what we mean by scratch, because not all scratches are created equal. There's some scratches, for example, how about this? Let me really add complexity to the moment. How about when I'm polishing a car Am I not scratching a car? So in that context, because context gives meaning, so in that context, scratching is wanted, is it not? Because you're scratching your way to perfection. You're scratching through abrasive particles that are suspended in some type of polish or compound in order to remove imperfections in your paint. Therefore, scratches in that context are actually wanted, but we're not talking about polishing your paint, we're talking about washing your car. So in this context, washing your car and scratching it generally is not a good parallel. We do not want to introduce scratches into our car paint via a wash method. So it does scratch your clear coat. We'll just accept that, yes, it's going to scratch your clear coat, but that's where I add a voice of reason to my own customers, which is one, I promise you, your car has thousands of scratches on it. You just can't see it. Or your eye does not know how to interpret what is actually being reflected back at you. Because I've played this game with endless people. We'll look at a black car on the road and I say, oh my gosh, look at the swirl marks, look at the wash scratch, look at the spider webbing. And all they see is this black, shiny car that, let's say it's a cool car, a Porsche, a Mercedes, whatever, and that's all they see is a black, shiny car. And I say, yeah, but don't you see all that wash scratch and the spider webbing going on? It's like, well, what do you even mean, Darren? So it's an untrained eye. So point is will it scratch? But maybe the greater question is because, as I say, everything has trade-offs. So if I know that I can get a clean car much simpler and easier and quicker by using a waterless wash product, and I accept that it's going to do what I would call a trivial amount of scratching if I use it appropriately or I pick the right product, then I'm okay with that. Because I know, A, my car already has scratches on it, which doesn't mean I want more scratches put into it, but I accept that not all scratches are created equal, and I also know that in my world, keeping it real means this. If I can stand back at my car and look at it from what I call normal viewing distances, anywhere from like 3 to 20 feet away, and I'm dazzled and I'm mesmerized and it's got the wow factor and it pops, then that's the real world to me. That's what I want. Because I know that I've had black cars, I've had some really nice cars, I currently have a very nice car, and when anyone ever sees it, whether it's at the bank, the gym, the market, I don't care where it is, I've literally had people pull up next to me at the light, the stoplight on the street, roll their window down and ask me like, dude, what year is that car? Man, that thing is like, I can't believe how shiny that is. Did you just have it painted? And I'm referring to cars in the past that were black. And by the way, I've been doing waterless wash methods on my own cars before the products even existed. We, and by we, I mean me and my employees, we experimented with this process of using different chemicals, whether it's window cleaner, spray detailers, different type of chamois, different types of cloths in order to finesse and tease out the process of removing the superficial dirt, doing the least amount of damage, doing the least amount of work, getting from point A to point B quicker. So we teased that out decades ago, and we were doing it before it existed. So I've been a big fan of that since day one. It's just that now we have dedicated products. And ever since then, like my neighbors would come over and be like, damn, this car looks so good. You're so on top of it. In fact, I had this one story, and I may share it on my website somewhere. Well, I was working in this neighborhood, and if you live in Southern California, you'll recognize this area, or likely. It's a very well-to-do gated community. It's called Nellie Gale. It's right off the 5 freeway in what's considered South County of Orange County. Very affluent neighborhood. It's up on the hills. So I'm working in Nellie Gale. I used to show up to this customer's house. He had 3 black cars. I would wash them and wax them every single week. And the neighbor across the street, after a couple months, he finally came over, and I would show up every Sunday morning and do this. He'd be like, dude, okay, I'm paraphrasing here. He didn't actually call me dude because he was an older guy and I was quite a bit younger then. This is probably going back literally 20 years ago now. As I noticed that you don't wash cars in the traditional way, but I look at my neighbor's cars and they look so amazing. Like, you need to market this somehow. And I said, trust me, if I had the money and the time, I'd do it. By the way, do you got a bunch of money and time I could have of yours so that we could do this? He didn't. Anyhow, but he just was amazed at, that I was breaking the rules using non-traditional methods, but still able to get the results that I was getting. So this is just me trying to illustrate a lot of points. One, I'm a big fan of it. Secondly, we need to clarify our words, our terminology before we have a discussion on it. Thirdly, James, most of what you're saying I agree with, but that's where I would take each one of these points and dissect it. Does it scratch? Yes, it does. But there's very few methods that are not going to scratch your car because, and really it's all relative to how dirty the car starts out with. What I find so interesting is that guys will become so fixated and neurotic about their car and scratching it. Like, oh, I would never take my car to a public car wash because they're gonna scratch it and those guys don't know what they're doing and the cloths they use are dirty anyways. And I say, there I am talking with this individual and I'm looking at his car and he's got 3 months of dirt sitting on his car. And it's like, dude, if you're that concerned with not scratching your car, why do you allow 3 months of dirt to accumulate on your car? It does not compute in my tiny little brain. So if you're that concerned with it, wash your damn car. And guess what? The more you wash it, the less dirt you're gonna have to remove in the process of washing it each time. Ergo means the less scratching you're gonna do. Because if you allow enough dirt to accumulate, I don't care how you're washing it, you're going to induce some type of scratching to the equation. So I've barely gone through 3 sentences of this and I can dissect every one of it. And that's not me like trying to, lay the hammer down on you, James, but I'm just saying is that, as I said at the beginning, I agree with 90% of what you're saying. So it's a no-brainer for me to not use the method. Rinseless washing is much better in my opinion. By the way, no argument, I agree. Because you even go on to clarify, because there's just too much here that I could address. For example, you list it in order, which you say that waterless will produce the most scratching, rinseless will produce less scratching, and washing it in the traditional way will produce no scratching, I think. No scratching or
Yes.
little less,
I
the least
think
amount.
I think it said no scratching. No, I'm just knocking my head because I don't agree with that.
Oh, you don't agree with that?
Yeah.
I know, you and I actually disagree, I think.
Yeah.
Because, I think we disagree at a superficial level, but when I dig in and force you to clarify, now I'm having a conversation with Sean, force you to clarify like I'm trying to teach these guys, that you and I actually agree. Because there's so many moving parts to that, like, okay, how much dirt is on it? How soft is the clear coat?
Right.
Does it scratch easily? Does it mar easily? What type of product are you using? So I think somewhere in here, he actually dissects it and he creates this hierarchy of, okay, the worst method is waterless wash product. That will produce the most scratching. The next best method is rinseless. That will produce less scratching. The best method is to wash it in the traditional, I don't think he calls it the 2-bucket method, but he just calls it the traditional wash method. So my simple answer is yes, yes, and yes. That would be my simple answer. Ironically, I actually incorporate all 3 of those elements in how I wash my own car, which I would never even call it washing because my car never really gets dirty. I promise you, when I wash my car, all my neighbors in my neighborhood are looking at me as like the whack job. It's like, dude, why are you washing? I don't even know what you're doing with your car because you don't have a hose and bucket out there. You're not drenching it with a bunch of water. So it kind of suggests that you're washing it, you're cleaning it or something, but it's so clean, like what are you even doing? That's how they would look at it, because I like a really, really clean car. So let me clarify a couple things, because I actually want to address, and Shakira, I apologize if I'm botching your name up, Sharuka, why did I even say Shakira? That was lame of me. Sharuka, he comes in and addresses James' comments. So one of the points is, as a professional, meaning you're trying to make a living doing detailing. That is very different than detailing cars as a hobbyist, as in you've got like 2 or 3 hours to kill on a Saturday or Sunday morning and you've got nothing better to do, or it's how you escape from the wife nagging you in the house. I don't know. That's not my world. My world is I'm doing it professionally to make money. So I have to understand my customer, and my customer is the boss. Okay, but I also know that my customer largely is pretty ignorant as to how the process really works. All they want to see is the results. That's what they're paying for me to do, is produce desired results. So as long as I know I'm not damaging their car in a damaging way as far as long term, so you could like work yourself down that rabbit hole and say like, oh, the second you introduce a single scratch on their car, Darren, you have therefore damaged their car. It's like, okay, we could play that game all day long. Like I could say, oh, you know what? Because I pulled their car out to wash it, I just wore off some tread off of their tire. Therefore, I should reimburse them for the tread wear that I had to wear down in order to back out their car in order to wash the car. How about that? Or I need to pay them for the 1 gallon of water that I used or that was required to use. I mean, we could play that game all day long. So the point is I'm paid to produce results. So I know that I can pull up to a car, and if it's not, or I should say if it's sufficiently clean enough, I know I can use waterless wash methods or rinseless methods in order to do the initial cleaning, or the initial, or I shouldn't say the initial, or the overall maintenance detailing without the traditional bucket, wash mitt, and water method and soap method. I know I can do that. And every single time my customer comes out and says, damn, I love the way my cars look when you're done with them, Darren. I wish I could afford to have you over here every day. So could we dissect it with a microscope and say, hey, Darren, guess what? You put 3 new scratches on the paint today. Of course we could. Okay, but when I pull that car back into the garage of some of my customers and they immediately want me to cover it with a car cover so that it remains dust-free longer, well, guess what? We're going to introduce some scratching to that car just by putting that cover on that freshly detailed car. So once again, I can play that game all day long. So with that said, as I think there was a comment made by Sharuka, traditional wash creates more scratches than rinseless. I would actually disagree with that. Rinseless, this is what I like, is rinseless doesn't mean you can't rinse before when needed. See, there's a voice of reason, James. So James, you kind of get into the really black and white of like the technical term. It's kind of like if you were to go biblical, you've got the letter of the law, you've got the spirit of the law. Okay, what's the letter of the law? The letter of the law says it's a no rinse product. Therefore, in order to use it, you're forbidden from ever rinsing off the heavy layers of dirt and mud and stuck on debris before you use your no rinse product. Okay, to me that's absurd. And I'd be willing to guess that you would probably agree with me if I got you on camera. I don't know, but I just know that Sharuka applies a voice of reason there. So that's where you apply critical thinking and say, okay, I've got this no rinse product called Optimum No Rinse. I want to use it, but you know what? There's a little too much dirt on this car than I would prefer. Therefore, I'm going to do a quick blasting of my pressure washer or garden hose, get the big chunks off, and then I'm going to proceed with a no rinse product or a waterless product, because that will make it safer. So you could say that, well, oh, that counters that. That contradicts that. It's like, once again, we could play word games all day long. I do not agree. Rinseless means rinseless. It means at no point are you to rinse. Otherwise, it's not a rinseless method. That's what James says in response to Sharuka's message. Sharuka responds, isn't it all about the result and not all about philosophy? Bingo! Once again, a voice of reason. Rinseless products are designed to be safer than traditional soap. They attack the dirt in other ways. Something James also mentions is that rinseless or no rinse products has chemicals in them that encapsulates the dirt. So when Sean and I made a waterless product out of the wax by diluting it down with water, guess what? Water naturally, and see, this is where word games comes in. Let's define the word encapsulates. Is there products that literally at a chemical or chemistry level will literally encapsulate, encircle a dirt particle through positive or negative ions, for example? Yes, it will. Okay, but once again, I don't need to debate the like ultra minutia of the minutia of the minutia. I just want results. I want a good ROI, which is a return on investment. I know that I want my car to look good all the time, more frequently rather than less frequently. And I know that the methods that I employ to do that, which is a combination of all three of those, produces the best ROI for me, produces the best results, but I keep a realistic perspective about the equation. I accept that there's gonna automatically be certain unwanted side effects to anything I do. Everything in life has certain trade-offs. So in like 21,589 words or less, that is our lesson today. And with that, James, if you would like to come on video, Sean and I would invite you. We could set up a time, contact Sean at Blue Tech Mobile Detailing. He's my gatekeeper because I simply do not have time. And you can coordinate it with him, and we will get you on Skype. We actually have a video where we did with another viewer, Tyler. It's I haven't posted it yet, but you'll be able to watch it in the next week or so when I do post it. Because I would like to do this more regularly, is take some of the feedback, some of the comments, some of the questions, and answer them to my best ability based on my experience. Doesn't mean I know everything, but if you can challenge me with something that I don't know the answer to, that just gives me something that I can go away and increase my skill set, and I welcome that. And I like a lively debate. So if you're willing to, James, reach out. Once again, Sean, Blue Tech Mobile Detailing. He's very prolific on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, correct? They can find you in all those three platforms, right, Sean?
Yes.
Okay. So DM him, instant message him, text him. He's got a website. He's very accessible. Reach out to him. If you want to coordinate it, we'll get you on camera. We can deliberate further on this subject if you want, or you can throw another subject. According to Sean, he tried to do a little intel on you. The best he's been able to do is to find out that you were in business as a detailing professional approximately 11 years. But that could be recently, but that could be 20 years ago. I have no idea how old you are or anything like that. So with that said, I'm kind of worn out at this point. Never mind you guys. My apologies in advance. Always check the links below. And if you want to do a little test, you can look up waterless wash or waterless, what's it called? Waterless Auto Detailing, and see exactly where I place on Google in the search engines, because my websites, I've spent a lot of time figuring out how to do this, and I've got a lot of pages that come up on page 1, 2, or 3. With that said, guys, we'll end there, and we'll see you on the next video.